This is Loropetalum chinesis Plum Delight. There are also some other varieties such as Burgundy, Blush, Ruby, Sizzlin' Pink, and the like. And these are, I've also seen these listed as Loropetalum chinesis rubrum varieties. And so having the red foliage is really what distinguishes them from the other chinesis, which has a white flower and a green leaf. So this is one of my favorite plants. Most of the photos you're looking at were taken in my yard, and this is kind of a centerpiece of the core plant design in my front yard. I've got it in a few different spots. And the reason I love this as a plant designer is it has year-round interest that's really hard to beat. It's also a medium-sized plant. I keep mine around 3 to 4 feet tall. And you're looking at a group here of about 3 plants, by the way. A typical Loropetalum in the residential landscape anyway is kept at I'd say 3 to 5 feet tall. 3 to 4 is kind of normal, and then about 5 feet wide, plus or minus 4 to 5 feet wide, for it to have its natural habit. What you see here, there's a video on maintaining this, but I like to use these, leaving them to have their natural form where they have naturally arching branches that are horizontally arching. You see the odd branch sticking up a little bit here, but one can control that and remove the odd one that goes up too vertically. Here you're looking at a close-up of the flower. The fringe flower name is from this very unique flower shape, and these are actually fragrant as well. I was surprised to find a very strong fragrance coming from this grouping the other night when I came home, and so they do have a very distinctive smell. I wouldn't say it's pleasant or off-putting. It's just kind of neutral, and it's not very sweet. It's a little musk-like, if anything. So interesting plant all around. As a design element, I saw this used in southern China by the hundreds in mass plantings down median islands for its burgundy color, and then contrasted with some kind of yellowy green, lime green foliage. And we drove by nurseries in the countryside that had nothing but this plant growing. So in southern China, Guilin, they were using these by the thousands as a point of interest. And these originate from southern China, I do believe. So here's the thing in terms of what they like. They like slightly acid soil, ideally, although they're tolerant of some alkalinity in my experience. They also can seem to take very different soils like clay and sandier soils as well. They're mostly deer tolerant, which is nice, but they do like kind of regular water. This is not a drought resistant plant. And one of the interesting things I found, and this is a key thing to think about in design, I have had a heck of a time getting it to establish around existing trees. I have not been able to get it to grow around existing trees the way it should. Whereas if I was planting it at the same time as a tree as in this photo, then it never had any issues. But when it's planted around the roots of existing trees, it had a heck of a time, or it never did establish correctly. So just be aware of that when you're selecting it. I will not use it around existing tree roots. I've never been successful in that regard. This is showing how when it's in bloom, you see the green leaf as well as these plum-shaped, plum-colored young leaves that are about to come out. When this goes into a bloom cycle, oddly enough, the leaves turn back to fairly green. Then when it's done blooming, the new growth comes on, as you see here, and it's plum colored, and that's when you get the most intense plum colored foliage or flush, is right after a bloom and the new growth comes on. And then depending on your light And mostly the lighting, I find, you'll get varying degrees of this nice plum color that it's named for. And if you put it in too much shade, I find that you get greener coloration. This can take full sun. I'm in a hot inland valley where the air is very dry, and it handles it just fine as long as it's getting some regular moisture. Is not drought tolerant, as I said. And with deer, I've seen deer really clean up on it and eat them, and I've seen them leave it alone. So I'd say, depending on your situation, it can be deer resistant, but is not 100%. Great landscape plant, love this, and as you saw in some of these photos, really good for contrasting other colored foliages off of, such as the chartreuse and the yellow and variegated whiter variegations. So great flexible plant, can use in commercial or residential applications. I just say give it enough room so that it can have its natural habit of growth, because it's so graceful and beautiful that way. And that's Loropetalum Plum Delight. By the way, in terms of cold tolerance, these are supposed to be cold tolerant down to around 0 degrees Fahrenheit.